The Trevor Jackson Podcast.
So you're suggesting that it was okay for slaves' bodies to not only be used for labor, but also used to empower those who are harming them to be fairly represented in government?
I think it's absolutely, they should have been used, period.
Okay,
I think it was
we agree on that.
Yeah,
we agree on that.
It was absolutely abhorrent. There's no excuse for it. There's no justification for it.
So then where's the argument? Because ultimately, when there was an opportunity in Reconstruction for there to be equality and humans considered in a real way and protected,
Democrats torched it. Andrew Johnson.
Yes. As well as the Supreme Court. That's actually more important what we have to acknowledge. The Supreme Court torched it. The Supreme Court has actively, throughout this entire existence of this nation, been at the forefront of impeding any advancement, and it ends up sending us back over and over and over again because it doesn't have term limits, because it doesn't have term limits. You know, it's not elected, it's appointed. And ultimately, they have made it abundantly clear that they pick and choose when it's the states that are going to have rights and when they're going to be in a federal position of precedence.
Well, that has to do with the supremacy clause. So the supremacy clause is when a federal law is in conflict with the state's law. The federal law will override. For example, in California, weed is legal, right?
But federally,
it's not. So they can come down here and they could say, hey, we're going to raid all these places, and they would be completely in alignment with the law.
And so this is how segregation and discrimination ended up existing even after the civil rights laws of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment were passed, because Congress said we need to protect Black people, and the Supreme Court said we actually are not going to give you the right to do so. For what it's worth, I think we can do this back and forth all day, but at the end of the day, I will completely agree with you. Black people need to let the Democrats go. I think Black people need to let both of these parties go and figure out a way to move forward together in our own nation.
You know what? I can actually get on with that because, I don't believe that all Republicans are, good and not using us as well. I agree with that. I agree with that. And
let's sing a duet.
I'm for no matter what color skin you are or Black, whatever it is, think for yourself.
Hey man, that was exciting. I have some things to say about that already. I was excited to watch this whole thing in its entirety. But I said, man, let me get on the microphone and record my thought process of this conversation. I'm going to watch it in its entirety also. If they let me upload it to YouTube, so be it. But if not, I will put it on my own website, or I will put it on Spotify so y'all can see the visual there also. But, what made me so intrigued about this is that I see it had 1.3 million views and it hasn't even been 24 hours. So that let me know that people are concerned with Black issues. People are interested in Black issues, and not only Black people, because other races study us. They study us, want to know what we're interested in. They want to know what we're doing. They're influenced by us in everything that we do, from stylistically to music to being creative like we are. They want to study us. So I took a few notes to introduce who Amanda Seales was. I know some people watching this may know who she is. I know her kinda, but I really haven't been too intrigued with her content or her podcast or the things that she's doing. I know that she's a comedian, a child star. She was on Nickelodeon, My Brother and Me show. She has a master's degree from Columbia University in African American Studies. Also, she was a singer, replacing Natalie Stewart in the duo Floetry. The last time I seen Amanda, she was on Shannon Sharp, and she went viral there talking about Issa Rae. And then afterwards, she went on her own platform to talk about how she was treated by Shannon Sharp during that episode. A lot of people don't like the positions that she take, but me, to be honest with y'all, I like people that, everybody don't agree with, because it's interesting and it's healthy for conversation. Also, I want to read this because I have my perspective of what a Black radical is, but she embraces being radical and embraces being a Black radical. So I had to research it and see what the AI overview said, see what's the definition of it and everything. So what the AI overview say is it is a concept and framework that encompasses the diverse and evolving history of Black resistance movements and an intellectual thought aimed at challenging racial oppression and achieving Black liberation. It's not a monolithic ideology, but rather a collection of ideas and actions rooted in the experience of Black people facing colonialism, slavery, and systematic racism. You know, the core principles say the BRT centers on the idea that Black people's liberation requires challenging and transforming existing power structures, including capitalism, imperialism, and white supremacy. It emphasizes self-determination, community building, and the pursuit of social, political, and economic equality. You know, it manifests in various forms, including Marxist, socialist, communists, viewing capitalism as a key obstacle to Black liberation. Interesting. Revolutionary nationalism, Pan-Africanism, seeking change through a nationalist or Pan-Africanist lens. Black feminism, integrating feminist perspectives and challenging patriarchy within liberation movements. So the last time I reacted to a Jubilee episode, it was Candace Owens. This time we're going to check out Amanda Seales and see what this is all about. Let's get to it.
Black culture is toxic. And let's get on the fact that there's no fathers in the black home. Let's talk about that.
Stop.
Who do
You're
we vote
talking
for?
to a radical, not a Democrat. The radical mind state simply is living opposite to our colonizers, which is an imperialist, capitalist mind state, and radical Blacks do not believe that that is any way for us to have liberation. Well, here's what you all keep doing. You keep interrupting me when I'm talking, and you don't want to hear the point that I'm going to make. And yet you want me to respect your point. And that's not how a debate works. If I show you respect, give me the respect back. Ooh, I knew I was going to be surrounded by ignorance, but damn, let's go. Greetings. I am Amanda Seales, widely known as a comedian, an actress, a disruptor, an annoying person on the internet who always tells the truth. And I am now an artistic intellectual who commits myself to making art that educates. And today, I am surrounded by 20 Black conservatives. My first claim is it is undeniable that reparations are just and necessary.
All right, reparations, fair, necessary. My question would be, who's going to get it? Why would they get it? And how long are we going to sit here focusing on trying to get reparations? It's been how many years since slavery? 150 years, 1865? Whenever there's a real thing that this country wants to do, they do it. Stop Asian hate. Okay, there's a problem with the Asian hate. Let's draft a bill, sign it, and it's done. Anything that needs to be done is done. With us, it's a carrot they dangle in front of us that they don't really want to do. And it's not going to help. We need education. Oh, it's not going to help. No, it's not. We need education. Getting a check from the government is not going to do that. And we need proper education. A lot of us go to these institutions where we're not really prepared, we're not really focused, and we don't get things that'll help us in the real world. So if you want to help Black people, a check from the government, from our tax dollars is going to get raised, because let's be clear, everybody in here is Black. We all American, we all got to pay taxes. It'll go to that. So I don't really see how this is going to help us at all.
Okay. Well, first I'll start with, it will help on even just a moral level. The reality is that the United States has become very comfortable with the fact that it does not consider Black people equal. And it shows that in many ways that I'm sure we will discuss over the course of today. But ultimately, there has not been a committed, concerted effort to shifting the mindset around the use of Black people as a labor force in this nation back when it was slavery, now in the use of slavery as slave labor in prisons. So on a basic cultural level, reparations are an act of repair. They are an effort to say, our bad, we see you now. We have seen that done with Japanese folks who were put in internment camps. We have seen that done with Jewish folks. We have seen that done even in the case of slave owners who received reparations. When it comes to the use of tax dollars to pay reparations, and this is going to come up a lot today, it's a matter of values, right? For me, my value system circulates around the fact that I think that as a community, we should all be engaged in repair for our community. So I don't think there should be any problem with there being tax dollars spent at repairing consistent efforts efforts that have been made to impede Black people. So the reparations you're talking about are not just related to slavery. There's reparations that have been discussed all over this nation in different communities as it relates to particular massacres, as it relates to redlining and the impediment of Black people to earn wealth by having property. There's been impediments in various ways that can be repaired. And I want to also just add, there's reparations that are considered a cash payment from a government. There's also the version of reparations that shows up in how funds are applicated to specific groups of people. So there's multiple ways in which what you're stating cannot happen could very well happen.
Okay, now as far as the money going towards certain things is going to help us, let's look at Baltimore Public Schools. They get, I think, the third most money per pupil in the US of A, like $15,000 per student, but yet the majority of the population that comes from that environment can't read, they're illiterate. So we're dumping money on the situation, yes, but yet we're not getting the results we should get from it. Money's not going to help the thing. We need to just focus on what we need to focus on. As far as Black people being labor force of this country, what else are we doing? We got 25% of us on some kind of government assistance. 1 out of every 3 Black men will go to jail. We got to do something. We got to work with our hands, work with tools, do something, because we're not doing much of anything. And also, one more piece here. Reparations, again, always dangling in front of us, never going to happen. As long as you've been living, as long as I've been living, as long as everybody been living, they say we need it, we need it, we need it, and it never gets done. One more piece.
You just said one more piece, then you're adding another one.
I promise.
So hold on to it.
I'm gonna land the plane. I'm gonna land the plane. I promise. Reparations is a thing. Like I said, it's a carrot that dangle in front of us. They're never really going to get it done. And if it was going to get done, it would have already been done. It's just something that they're using to try and make us stay Democrat. That's what I wanted to say.
Well, Democrats are not doing reparations either. They're not. This is nonpartisan. This is Black partisan, baby. Okay.
Well,
this is nonpartisan.
Who do we vote for? Who do we vote for 93% of the time? There's no incentive.
To be quite honest, you're not talking to a Democrat. You're talking to a radical.
Okay, but let's
land this plane very quickly.
Who do we vote for?
Let's land this plane quickly.
Who do we vote for?
You're talking to a radical, not a Democrat.
Okay, and you are your own person.
Let me tell you something
now.
I don't know what they told you, but if they told you that cutting me off is how we're going to get clicks, stop it now.
Oh, no.
That's not how we're going to. That's not how we're going to enter.
We having a debate.
A debate does not require continuously cutting somebody off.
Okay, no problem.
Now, I do want to state this. You're stating things as it relates to how money is not fixing a problem without acknowledging the fact that the problem doesn't exist in a vacuum and that there are so many other factors that are determining how that money is getting spent to impede it from actually fixing a problem. You can put all the money into Baltimore Public Schools you want, but if you are also putting all this money into policing, into communities that are not getting resources, then you are also creating your own conundrum. The other part of this is that when you're saying they, the they is a broad context. And the last part of this that I will say is that you keep saying they're dangling this in our face. They're dangling in our face. Slavery lasted for 400 years. It hasn't even been 400 years since slavery. So should we be only fighting for a quarter of the time to get repair?
All right. I'm so sorry. You've been voted out by the majority.
All right.
Please return to your seat.
Okay.
I wrote down a few points. I got to address some things that were said because a lot of things that were said was interesting, but I don't think nothing new was said because on my channel, I have been covering reparations for a long time. And that brother was talking about slavery. It's so much more that was done to a people as a whole, while reparations needs to be something that is, it's certain words that I don't even want to use because people you throw those words back at me in defense of themselves. So Black people didn't even say that they wanted this. This was something that was brought upon by the government. They first said 40 acres and a mule. Then they said they was going to give reparations. Reparations is repairing communities. It's repairing the damage that was done. So they obviously acknowledged that they did some damage to build themselves up. They acknowledged that. And the damage that was done was beyond slavery. I talk about my channel. If you go to the Historically Speaking playlist, I talk about the Wilmington Massacre that happened in the 1800s. I talk about Fort Lauderdale. I got videos on the Red Summer of 1919 where they killed Maurice Mays for sleeping with a white woman and burnt down half the town in Knoxville, Tennessee, and in other places. I talk about, Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Everybody know what happened there. I got books on it. I read it. So to say that reparations is not needed is something that is actually at this point blasphemous. Redlining, we talk about how brothers went to the military and fought and they didn't get the opportunity to buy a home because they was black. And when they came back, those bills and stuff that was passed to help people in the military buy homes, they didn't get a chance to do that. So, the brother also mentioned, our tax dollars, a lot of us in here pay taxes. I pay taxes. I didn't agree that we should have been sending money over there to Ukraine to fight their wars. I don't agree with my tax dollars that they should be prioritizing things that ain't in my best interest or in my people's best interest. But you, as a black man, to say that reparations and a piece of money won't get nothing done, well, stop going to work, stop making money, and see how your life happen, nigga. If reparations won't help you. Finances help everything. It helps people be able to make decisions. People can't even make a decision when they ain't got no money. If you ain't got no money, you can't go to a 5-star restaurant. You can't even eat whole foods. You got to settle. So finances and financial structure, I'm at a point where black people are fighting against their own benefit. It's bullshit. Let's get into the next conversation and see what they talking about.
My name is Matt Nuclear.
Hello, Matt. Matt Nuclear?
Matt Nuclear, yes.
Matt Nuclear, give me a better handshake than that. Let's do it.
I appreciate having this conversation with a beautiful black woman like yourself. This is nice, beautiful arena here. I disagree that reparations are necessary. I think the most important thing that's necessary right now for the black community would be the stopping of violence, especially black on black violence. I don't see how reparations is going to solve anything. You can give everyone here like a $50,000, especially people that are in the streets who are committing violent crimes consistently, a $50,000 check. It's not going to fix anything. It's not going to increase the median household income in the next 10 years by 10% or 20%. For example, we had the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. We prevented Chinese people from getting citizenship and even entering the country. We discriminated against them and basically put them under apartheid, even here in the United States. Yet they have the highest median household income. How is that possible? How come they don't complain and feel entitled consistently to beg for reparations and beg for this when they are killing each other 90% of the time, which is the rate that black people kill each other, according to the FBI?
Oh, young Matt.
Yet white people are the oppressors.
I'm not sure where your education came from, but they lied to you.
Stats don't lie, though.
Statistics lie all the time. So let's start there, particularly when the statistics are coming from the sources that gain from the statistics being shown a different way. So if you're going to start your argument on stats don't lie, you've already lost the argument. They lie all the time. One, comparing Chinese people who are immigrants that made a choice to come to the United States and comparing the continued effort of black people to ground themselves in a nation that continues to make impediments for them to show and live and exist in their true citizenship is a false equivalency.
I don't believe that happens at all. No one here is in.
Are you acting right now? Do you really believe this?
I'm telling the truth. There's no systemic racism that I've experienced here in America. What system is racist? I think the only racism we've actually seen recently, systemic racism that we've seen, is the application of systemic racism against white people. The University of Western Washington, for example, has been trying to segregate dormitories, using black-only dormitories because black people feel safer amongst each other. But they're more likely to kill each other than white people are ever to kill them. That's just the truth. You have King Von rapping about killing other black men. Why should I think that the white man is the oppressor when black men are more likely to kill me?
Oh my God, this is scary. You need to think about me as your mama. Do not talk to me in that fashion. So let's check that now. Okay. So on a basic level, we have to understand that systemic racism is grounded in the realities that black people have not been considered an equal human being in this country since its onset. So there's simply no way to make the argument that there isn't systemic racism, and we have seen in very clear ways the system operate in an organically racist way. Do not cut me off. When we talk about systemic racism, we can start with even the fact that redlining, which was implemented to discriminate black communities. Are you shaking your head that redlining doesn't exist?
No, I'm saying I don't think it really existed at all. I mean, no, I don't think so at all.
So it does exist. And stating that it doesn't exist doesn't make it no longer exist. Redlining absolutely exists. It is not something that's being made up. It's an empirical fact. And there are realities that exist because of redlining. We know that school systems are related to the way that property taxes are affecting the school systems. If a school system is not getting the same property value as the property taxes allow it, then it's not going to have the same efficacy at allowing for students to be able to get what they deserve. When we talk about systemic racism, we have to acknowledge that these private prisons are literally built based on the test scores of school students in third grade. So if you are literally building prisons with the onset of, okay, if these people are not reaching a certain reading level, then we know that they're going to go down a prison industrial pipeline where we can use their free labor, then how is that not systemic? And if you want to
stop them from entering prisons,
how are you going to stop people from entering prisons if your goal is to get them into prison?
Sure, make them try to be more like Ben Carson than be like King Von. That's very, very simple.
So how does King Von happen? How does King Von happen?
King Von
reparations.
Hold on,
actually, no. Let me land the plane. Yeah. We're talking about reparations, and what you're doing is actually just trying to get this conversation off the facts. And the fact is, reparations are just and necessary because on a basic level, Black people built this country, and the country continues to thrive off of the labor that Black people put into this country. And it would behoove you, young man, to really understand the way that your ancestors put blood, sweat, and tears into this nation that is still living off of those blood, sweat, and tears. And let me also add, there are reparations and then there is remunerations. Do you know the difference?
Yes, but can I finish one point that I wanted to say?
Question.
Ben Carson's cousins were killed at a very young...
I'm so sorry. You've been voted out by the majority.
Okay.
Please return to your seat.
Hey, man. I damn near got a headache listening to that young brother. Defending white folks. Ain't nothing wrong with that. You know, I love some people that's Caucasian. I love people of all race, but at the end of the day, defending another race and speaking down on your people is blasphemous. It's blasphemous, nigga. You know, I met my wife in real estate school. I'm a licensed broker in the state of North Carolina. I want to read to y'all the definition of redlining, because he said he don't think that redlining exists. Before I talk about the notes that I took from the foolishness that that boy spewed about reparations, but he did say one thing. After I read this redlining, he said one thing that I do agree with. Redlining is a discriminatory practice where financial institutions deny services like loans or insurance to residents of specific neighborhoods based on their race or ethnicity. This practice originated from color-coded maps used in the 1930s, where neighborhoods with predominantly Black or minority residents were marked in red, indicating high risk and thus a denial of service. This practice has had lasting negative impacts on affected communities, contributing to racial and economic inequality. You know, real estate is one of those things that creates generational wealth. You know, people build equity in their homes. I've seen people who bought $5,000 homes and now they're worth $140,000. I've seen people buy a $250,000 home, now it's worth $1 million. I've seen people buy a $350,000 home and now it's worth $1 million. It's an investment that can set you up for success in the future. A lot of people was denied that in the 1930s, up to the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So him saying that he don't think it exists, this man might not even be old enough to buy a home. He probably still live at home with his mama on this show talking to somebody that is highly educated in Africa, got a master's in African American studies. Even though some people would call her a tether, I will say that she's an American. You know, her family is from the Caribbean. Her mother is from the Caribbean. Her father is from Boston. I know nowadays in the FBA community, people are delineating and dismissing people that isn't identifying with the FBA community, that isn't originally Black, and seeing themselves as foundational to this land. So I want to acknowledge that for a moment, because salute to Amanda Seales. I may not agree with everything that she say in this episode or whatever though, but some things it just has to be mentioned that, you know, the things that I agree with. I'm an independent also, y'all. I want to say what my political views are. I am independent. I reserve my right to vote and to speak based upon what my interests are, my loved ones' interests are, and what I feel is right and wrong. And I feel like separation is wrong as a whole, to be honest with y'all. But one thing that the brother did say, though, that I agree with is that black folks got to stop the violence. No cap. I just did a show where I said the OGs failed the youth. The OGs to me ain't original gangsters. It's just the older individuals in the neighborhood. I'ma always feel like y'all failed the youth as long as the youth continue to move and act the way that they act. Trump deploying the National Guard to DC, you know, I feel like it was necessary. Even though the crime is down, that shit gotta stop. Us killing each other gotta stop, because the only way we can empower each other is by unifying. But all that killing, that gang violence, that separation, Bloods and Crips, and creating organizations so you can make a couple of $1,000s and own a block that you don't even own, represent a block that you don't even own, all that foolishness, we got to cut that shit out as a whole, because that's killing the community. I can't even go back to my community and speak to people that can't articulate themselves and have an intelligent conversation, or talk about us moving forward or building and unifying and growing and trying to get some money together. I just can't even talk to niggas that's on that dumb shit no more. So what he said about stopping the violence was interesting. But one thing I want to do to talk about before I continue on with the conversation and continue playing the clips is he said, make more Ben Carsons and not King Vons. You know, people turn into who they turn into based upon circumstance. You know, I am who I am today based upon circumstance. I live in a nice community now. Real nice community now. I come from the trenches. The trenches. Eating go-go boxes. You know, on welfare, getting government cheese. Seeing dead bodies, you know, weekly in my neighborhood. Now I live in a gated community. On the lake. Circumstances made me who I am today. King Von became King Von because of his environment. How was his environment created? When they let the slaves go, they let them go without any resources. You know, you can say that time has passed and, you know, people should be healed by now and all of that type of stuff or whatever you want to say. But to me, when they let the slaves go without resources, the slaves found a way to be able to thrive, build communities, come together. When we were segregated, we didn't have no choice but to come together. But when we came together, what happened? They destroyed the neighborhoods. They created redlining. It was the Wilmington massacres, the Red Summers, the Black Wall Streets. See, I can't let a child go. It's illegal without any resources into the street. Get out my house. You can't come back in here. That's what the American government did to black people. And then you say, why are these people this way and why they act this way and why they that way? You know, that's because circumstances. You don't know what you would do if you didn't have nothing to eat or you had to figure it out on your own. You ain't got no friends or nothing like this. The people that raised you was on drugs or they traumatized from their past. Man, let me get back into this video.
I hope some of y'all are acting. I really do. We in LA, and I hope some people in here are acting. Oh, what's that on your chain?
This is coin from Israel.
Lord have mercy.
Yes, you got to go.
That's a choice that you are making for yourself.
Yes. The thing with the whole reparations thing, and I don't know, we're probably close to the same age, so maybe you can't call me.
How old
mom.
are you?
I'm 32.
I'm 44.
Oh, really? Oh, you look young.
Thank you. That's what water and keeping stress out of your life will do.
Really? Liberal positions are real stressful.
By the way, I wouldn't know. I'm not a liberal. Carry on.
Well, it's the liberal position because conservatives believe in hard work. We believe in going to work and working for what you got, not asking for handouts from people who never had slaves. Some of the people that you're asking for money from never had slaves. And let's talk about the fact there were also black people that had slaves. So if you want to talk about that, how is that fair? If I'm a white person and my family fall on the side of the Union, why should I have to pay for slaves when this whole country was never all racist? Some of the founding fathers were abolitionists, and they hated slavery. And they actually put things in the Declaration of Independence and things too, because they believed that there'll be a future where there would be a black president one day, or that there would be people in leadership that were black. There was people in the North who helped with the Underground Railroad and fought with the Union. So why is that fair for people who never had slaves, who fought against slavery, to have to pay for people that had slaves?
One, from my understanding, you are more interested in preserving the fairness of those who didn't have slaves than the fairness of those who are the descendants of slaves. That is priority to you than finding a fair way to accommodate those who have been the descendant of slaves.
Well, our ancestors wasn't asking for handouts. They were asking for equal opportunity. And we have equal opportunity in this country. We had a black president, just in case you didn't know. We had a black president and we had a black vice president. I think she was black. They said she was black. I don't know. So we had a black president, and you know who voted for that black man? White people, because you can't win a popular election in this country without white people. So Barack Obama is the product of white people. So let's get off this thing where, America is so racist. What's making America so racist is people that continue to talk about racism and continue to focus on racism instead of focusing on unity and bringing our country forward. People that have this liberal mindset are infecting our communities, black people, and making us victims and not victors. I refuse to embrace a victim mentality because that's not what our grandparents and Harriet Tubman and those people fought for. They fought for equal opportunity.
Do not bring up Harriet Tubman's name in vain, baby, please.
They said the Lord's name in vain. The Lord's name.
Harriet Tubman was literally saving her family and others from slavery.
Yeah. You know who helped her? White people.
You know who helped her?
They were on the Underground Railroad. Come on in.
No, you know who helped her?
Come on in.
You know who helped her?
God and
people who benefit from white supremacy. One of the things
it's a lie. White supremacy is a lie.
No, sir,
it's
that's simply not true. If that were not the case, then we wouldn't see the continued effort of colonialism and white people placing themselves in positions of power when they do not have the power.
Because their culture. Black culture is toxic. The black culture is toxic. We have produced a culture that is toxic. And let's get on the fact that there's no fathers in the black home. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
None of this is gonna work if y'all are just gonna sit here and make up shit.
It's
not gonna work. No, a debate has to be in facts.
You're putting off emotional liberalism right now.
I am not putting off emotional liberalism. You're putting off unfounded lies based in conservatism.
Misinformation. Remember they get the misinformation thing all summer where everything conservatives did. They said misinformation.
You're carrying a chain around your neck of an apartheid nation that actively wants to harm black people and non-Jewish people. But let me bring it back. Let me bring it back.
Selling black people in Africa.
That was not happening in the context that you're saying.
And they were selling their own people. Black people still sell their own people today too, by the way.
I don't know if I'm going to last.
We're selling our own people today too.
I don't know if I'm going to last.
probably won't last with me.
I won't, because your ignorance is so overwhelming.
See, that's liberals. Y'all start name calling when y'all getting defeated in an argument.
Calling. You won't have an argument because you keep cutting me off.
Oh, well, that's fine if they don't let me come back up. I made my point.
You didn't make your point.
I made my point.
You haven't made your point. And let me just tell you about your point. You started off saying, we believe in hard work.
Yeah.
And we believe in being compensated.
Reparations is not, though. Reparations is not hard work. It's stealing. It's Robin Hood.
You said you believe in hard work.
Yes.
And you believe in being compensated for hard work.
Yes.
Were slaves compensated for their work?
They weren't compensated for their work. But why should people who are sitting at home playing video games, smoking marijuana,
are you sitting at home playing a video game? Are you sitting at home playing a video game?
The people that they wanted
Am I
reparations
sitting at home
for?
playing a video game? No.
The people
and
they
I don't
want
know
reparations
I don't
for.
know who these people are that you're talking about, because the majority of the black community is not sitting at home playing video games.
The majority of the black
Where
community
are you getting
is doing
that
a lot
statistic?
of things.
Where are you getting that statistic?
Pause. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
I knew I was going to be surrounded by ignorance, but damn.
This fat ass, extra comfortable with his life ass nigga just said a whole bunch of foolishness. Good God Almighty. A lot of assuming and not speaking facts. You know, I'm not liberal. I view myself as conservative in some ways, but not by choice. I'm conservative by force. And I'm not going to explain why. Y'all get it. Conservative by force. So he first talked about hard work. I wrote this down because sometimes I can't remember a lot of the foolishness that be spewed. Believe in hard work. I believe in hard work. I've been working since I was 9 years old. My uncle owned a barbecue shop in Tennessee, and I've been working since I was 9. And I'm 45. Every day. When I was 9 till I turned about 15, 16, I worked every single day as a child. So I believe in hard work. And I believe reparations is due. I believe reparations is owed. Reparations is deserved. And the reason I called him out his name, I apologize though, but you know, picture him in slavery with all that emotion and not letting the woman talk and speaking all feminine. You know, man, I can't imagine being in a labor force for free where they feed me and clothe me and put me back in the room and then make me work again. I can't imagine it. But I can see some people who wouldn't survive in it. And he is one of those individuals. He talked about fairness to white people. I'm not speaking specifically about a race because white people benefited from what the government allowed. The rules, laws, and the regulations that was created allowed for certain white people to benefit from this. So I'm not speaking to a specific race because I believe that race is a social construct to create division. It's not even a real thing. Black and white don't even exist. It ain't no other countries that identify themselves as color. And in Japan, they ain't brown and light brown. You know, in Australia, they don't consider themselves white and I don't know what, kangaroo. You know, it's just foolishness. This race stuff though, but fair. Was burning down communities fair? Was integrating a whole bunch of people to your political ideology fair to profit off of those guys? You know, he also talked about white people is the reason why we had a black president. We didn't never have a black president and we didn't have a black vice president. I don't consider Kamala Harris black. She don't consider herself black. She only did when she thought it would get her votes. And it didn't get none from me. And I didn't vote for Trump also. I said this one out because I can't vote for two imbeciles. But Barack Obama wasn't black. He didn't live the black experience. And living the black experience don't make you black. But he was in Hawaii with his white side of his family. That's not a black man. Victim mentality. The man said white supremacist is a lie. He also said their culture is why they're in power. Black culture is hindering us. I got something to say about black culture too before I move forward in this video. Black culture is some bullshit though. Certain elements of the culture. The things that we embrace and prioritize. Like certain elements of hip hop. Crime. The not unifying aspect of the culture. I love my people as a whole, but certain aspects that we embrace and prioritize in the culture is bullshit. And I hate to say it, but it's true. But dude that just came on, Lord have mercy. Woo! That was harsh to deal with.
Let's go. Hello. My hand's wet from the bottle.
My hands are sweaty because
Okay.
I'm nervous. We both got sweaty
Got
hands. Okay. So I just wanted clarity because I think it'd be helpful. You said radical. I wanted just clarity on that. And then also with the reparations, you said it's not just money, it's other things. I just want to know, like, what do you see as like the grand picture of what would help?
The grand picture of what would help?
Of
what?
reparations, like what does that look like to you?
Oh, great. Reparations, what reparations looks like to me is a combination of reparations and remunerations. And reparations are about repair for damages that have been caused based on harm. Remunerations is a monetary response to work that has not been paid for. So if you come and paint my house and I don't pay you, you can take me to court and get remunerations for the work that you have done. So we're actually owed both in this nation as Black people. And there are incredibly just clear-cut records that show the buying and selling and purchasing of slaves, the work that was done, also the intellectual property that was stolen from slaves, right? Because there was so much inventing that was happening. And there is also quite a bit of other reparations that are being discussed as it relates to property being stolen, as it relates to, again, redlining and the inability for Black people to get loans, et cetera. And these impediments being solely based on their race.
As far as like discrimination?
Yes, like they're being solely based on their race, that not being about anything other than you're Black, so you can't, right? And so when it's very clear cut like that, there are very distinctive responses to that that can be done through a cash payment, as well as through measures that are being done to create funds for creating resources and responses like housing, like access to food, access to education, et cetera, that certain communities have not had access to because of the fallout from these things.
And I just had a quick question for clarifying. With the funds, I'm wondering, where do you think those should come from? Like the actual money, like is that we're raising money? Is it taxes? Like what does that look like?
Well, I think what they've been doing with these different reparations committees is they're looking at, all right, well, how much has this city or how much has this town or how much has this country gained from the estimated amount that was stolen from these people, right? So they're looking at like, what is this wage amount? For instance, like if you look at during that time, okay, what was the wage amount that a hired worker would get for this same work? All right. And so we're looking at how was that wage not provided and what is that pool that is being created? And then we're looking at, all right, where can that wage come from in terms of how has that wage been applied? So there are spaces where this is very clear. I think the last thing that you asked about was the difference between liberal and radical.
Yeah, please.
Ultimately, the concept of liberalism is really just not Republican, right? I mean, that's essentially what it's become.
I would disagree with that, but I understand that's your stance.
There's a very generic concept of what liberalism is in the sense that it's simply saying that I am a part of the bipartisan mind frame, but I am not a Republican. It's a mindset. It doesn't always show up in action, but it's a mindset that says, you know, I don't support extremes in certain ways, or, you know, I want the government to show up in certain ways. You know, I know there's a conservative point of view that says there should be less government, but even though it just says that, the action is very different. The radical mind state simply is living opposite to our colonizers, which is an imperialist, capitalist mind state, and radical Blacks do not believe that that is any way for us to have liberation.
Thank you for explaining that.
And thank you for being very respectful.
We were told to be respectful. We're not your enemies.
Thank you, my good sis.
I think they about to come up with, you know, a commercial.
Surrounded is now a podcast, available wherever you listen. Search Surrounded, plug in, and stay part of the conversation. Anywhere, anytime.
My next claim.
Hold on. Before she get to talking, I want to give my take on what she said. So I like the strategy from that young lady. She wasn't combative. She, put the question back on her about reparations. Where do you think they should come from? I feel as if she didn't respond well to where reparations should come from, talking about the wage differences in certain states and being specific. I feel as if it's a national situation. I feel like it should come directly from the people's tax dollars, from the United States government tax dollars. That's what I think. I think it should be a massive amount of money in the trillions. I feel like it should be $1 trillion flat rate. And I don't think it should just go straight directly to the hands of the people. I think it should be some sort of structure that help people evolve in society. And you have to come together and unify, and you have to do certain things to get it. Because the reason I feel that way is because if people know something beneficial is coming their way, or they can get it if they do something specific for it, then this crime and this violence that we talk about and these gang activities will come to a cease if people know that something beneficial is happening. I didn't like the way she responded with the wages thing, though, but I like that lady, came with the questioning that she did instead of being combative towards her. Let's get on to it.
Is that black on black crime is a result of underinvestment and over policing.
So you say that black on black crime is due to underfunding and over policing, essentially.
Yes.
I actually don't necessarily disagree with one of those. Okay. I think that, however, the government, who do you think should be responsible for the funding piece of the black community? Should that be something that the government should step into, or should that be something that we as black people need to handle ourselves? Dr. Jordan Peterson and even Thomas Sowell and several others have stated one thing, that poverty and crime, there's a positive correlation. There's also a positive correlation in the black community of absentee fatherism being one of the root causes leading into criminality. Black males that grew up without a father are 10 times more likely to engage in criminal activity. And so I think one of the...
Can I put a pin right there and ask you a question?
Ask me whatever you like.
What is the root cause of there being less fathers present?
Bad decision making on the part of the fathers. We live in a patriarchal system. Like it or not, men have dominated the socioeconomic, economic, and political power of this country and the world since our existence. So our bad decision-making, especially when we focus on the black community, is the root cause of fatherlessness.
What type of decisions?
Not marrying the women we decide to lay down and have children with. Not being careful with the seeds that we plant in women. No woman can get pregnant without a man planting his seed inside of her. So therefore...
So it's marriage.
Well, that's a part of it. That's marriage is a part of it.
Okay.
But the true piece that I'm looking at is connectedness between familial units. The black community was at its economically strongest while being at its poorest during the segregation era. Prior to 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King in his last speech said that we have an annual income of more than $30 billion a year, which is more than all of the exports of Canada and more than all of the exports of the United States and more than the national budget of Canada. That was when we were economically at our poorest. Yet 85% of our black children were growing up with a father in the home. There was less black on black crime. There was less disenfranchisement.
Why was there less black on black crime?
Because we needed to live together. We had to stick by each other. We had to stick
What
by
was
each
there
other.
also less of?
I'm not sure where you're leading. That's a leading question. I don't like those.
You don't like this?
I don't like leading questions, no. I like direct stuff.
So essentially, when we were living in our own communities, we were also policing our own communities. So we were not being used as statistics in the same way to determine how resources were provided to our own communities. When we were going to the government saying, hey, we deserve because we are supposed to be separate but equal, we weren't saying, hey, we want to be with y'all. We were essentially saying, we want what you are stating we deserve. And that is what all of the efforts of the civil rights movement has been. It's literally just been to say, you said when we got out of the Civil War that we would be considered citizens, and all citizens should be getting equal access to these things. However, you are actively allowing the Klan to harm us. You are actively allowing...
Who's killed more black people, the Klan or us?
I would like to continue my statement. I let you speak uninterrupted.
You did.
When we talk about this concept of who is harming us, we are really making a false claim when it comes to black on black crime, as if there isn't white on white crime. There's also this unnecessary effort to try and pathologize black on black crime in a way that you don't try to pathologize white on white crime. There are white people killing each other every single day. Now, they may be on jet skis in the pictures after they shoot up their whole family, but nonetheless, there are white people killing each other every single day. Now, much of the reason why you may see more numbers in terms of black on black crime are for two reasons. One, the statistics be lying all the time. We have seen
What
this.
numbers? Okay, when you
we
say
have
that,
seen
no,
this
no.
in a real way.
But I have a
So in
question.
New
No,
Jersey.
when you say
So
when
in
you
New
say
Jersey.
that, what numbers can be trusted? Because with the previous speaker, you
I'm
said
about to
statistics all
tell
the
you
time.
right now.
Okay, so your sources can
You
be
can't
trusted.
such number. No, I'm literally about to give you an example of numbers not being able to be trusted.
Okay, talk to me.
That's what I was doing.
I'm listening.
Okay, then listen.
Oh, my ears open.
So listen, in New Jersey, they had a statistic that was created by the police department that said, look at how many black people are committing crimes. Look at how crazy this number is. These black people are so exorbitantly violent. Look at this. And then people went and actually matched the names that they were booking with the faces of the actual people incarcerated. Okay. And it was proven that they were lying.
So that's one. So that's one instance.
That's
Hold on.
one
No, you're
example.
talking to somebody that works as a police dispatcher when I'm not making content. So here's the thing.
I see.
No. You see what?
Well,
the truth is, you're about to see the truth if you just give me a second. Like Trump said, just give me a second. I'm going to do the weave, but give me a minute.
Well, here's what you all keep doing. You keep
give
interrupting me when I'm talking, and you don't want to hear the point that I'm going to make.
The point that
and
you're
yet you want me to respect your point. And that's not how a debate works. So if you want me to keep getting louder, I will do it. But ultimately, if I show you respect, give me the respect back. I let you talk. I let you make your points. I am countering your points. And my points are just as valid as yours, even though you got a pocket square and a Church of Christ pin on your chest.
It's not a Church of Christ. It's
Whatever.
A cross.
It's a cross. Same difference. You got an American flag and you think you know something because you a cop. And ultimately,
not a cop. Dispatcher. There's a difference.
it's a cab all day over here. So let me make that clear. But let me also add to my point. My point is that you can sit here and blame black people on black people all day long and not acknowledge that we are forced into. You're coming to interrupt me again.
I haven't even said a word.
All right, that is flagged, so I'm going to ask you to return to your seat.
It's a waste of my time.
I feel as if that was a good conversation. So far, that was maybe one of the best conversations that was had. So he started off the conversation about underfunding and over-policing. Being dependent on government funds is actually, a sad life to live, to be honest with you. Even though I say reparations is something that is deserved, well deserved in the black community, depending on funding from the government is sad. I feel like that is a significant sign that we're not unified and we're not spending money with our own creations and spending money with our own community and building wealth within. When I look at other cultures supporting each other, it is very interesting to see how they thrive by supporting each other. They may work in white institutions and work jobs in white companies, but when they get that check and they bring it back, they bring it within. We see people wanting to go to this country, come to this country, illegally do whatever they can by any means necessary to come to America and send that money back across seas. They come over here wanting to obtain that wealth and send that money back home so they can live back home. And that is why they're thriving, because they have a unified mind frame. So the absentee father's point was the point that really caught my attention, because I've been speaking on my channel a lot about fathers not being in the home, how that has impacted people. I'm one of those guys. I knew my father, but I probably didn't see him 10 times in my whole life. He died when I was 37 years old, and I probably didn't see him 10 times in my life. But absentee fathers do play a part in the culture, the reaction of black men, the aggressiveness, the way people react with feelings and emotions instead of logically. I just knew he was about to say welfare, but he said bad decision making. I never heard that said before, because laying down, having sex, unprotected sex with somebody that you don't plan to commit with, build a family with, grow with is kind of stupid. You know, I don't have children at all though, and I was in fear of paying child support. I was in fear of creating a life with somebody that I couldn't spend the rest of my life with, or I didn't want to build with. That scared me as a young boy, and I wouldn't even have sex because of that with certain individuals, because I knew I didn't have a future with these people. But now, let me say something now. I understand why certain men do it, who lacks intelligence, who lacks discipline, who lacks, because their father wasn't in the home and they didn't think logically. They were seeking comfort. You know, that's why people get high. That's why people drink. You know, it's an excuse. I'm saying it's an excuse. But people do it because life is hard. They want some relief. Some people may not understand that. Like, sex is a relief for certain men who life is hard. They don't know what tomorrow brings. They might be on the run from the police. They might be broke and dealing with a whole bunch of things. People don't know what people that's in impoverished communities deal with. So some people go to drugs. Some people go to alcohol. Some people go to sex for relief. And then that empowers the welfare system to where people are dependent on government funding. Now, I would talk about some of the things that she combated, but I do want to say something that she talks about a lot. She's mentioned statistics lie a multitude of times so far on this show. And we just 27 minutes in, and we got a whole nother hour of listening to this. Stats do lie. I agree with her. Stats lie. It's a popular saying. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. That is cap. Numbers lie. I could give a whole bunch of examples of numbers lying, people fudging the numbers, scores in sports. It's a multitude of things that when people work production jobs and you have to produce, the numbers lie. The time can also lie. You know, people can manipulate certain things to make it seem as if numbers is always accurate. But numbers lie, man. In DC, they say crime is down the lowest it has been in 30 years. Well, why did Trump send the National Guards into DC then, if y'all believe that the numbers is down? Why did he send it? Is that a show of power or force? Or is crime still existing? Let me let them get back into the conversation.
Y'all just want to be seen. I don't need to be seen. Hello.
How are you? I'm Jasmine, the pretty good. Say less outfit. Okay.
Thank you.
So this is my thing. I think the premise of your question was black on black crime. So I think I'm coming from a place, and I guess my issue is having had my biological father murdered by a black man, having had my cousin shot in the head by a black man. We can talk numbers and statistics and what the people are doing and what the white man is doing and all that. But at the end of the day, I see when my family lives on the south side of Chicago, and I think you and I both can attest to this, and I'm not saying that there are not other factors, but we know that we kill each other at a disproportionate rate than any other race. Now, why we do that and why 6,000 to 9,000 black men are gonna be homicided or killed or whatever by the end of the year annually by other black men, whereas the likelihood of a black man being killed by a white police officer is less than 150 per year, we know that we kill each other at a higher rate. So I'm not debating that there are not factors at play, but because I've lived the experience as a black woman losing my father to be murdered by a black man, walking down the street,
by the way.
No worries, thank you. But walking down the street in inner cities and different things, knowing that it's more likely that my own brother will rob and rape me than a white man or a white officer, we got to be real.
What's your proximity to white men in the south side of Chicago? Are there even white men around to rob and rape you at the same rate that there are black men?
There are white men around.
At the same rate?
There wasn't a lot of black people in there, but then that doesn't justify the fact that we're destroying each other. So even if we get to the root, like
we can agree on that,
okay, because I feel like a lot of
nothing
times liberals will argue like, well,
I'm not
the
a
white people
liberal.
are killing
I am
people.
I'm not a liberal.
Okay, well, I will say that people that sometimes have your stance that are against conservatives, maybe they have this claim that they're making it up, they're making up the numbers. We know that we do that to each other. So I want to get to the root of the issue. Why are we killing each other?
I
think the root of the issue is we've lost our values and we've lost our resilience as Black people. We sit there and we talk about what the white man did and we talk about slavery and everything like that, but we have no self-accountability and say, you know what, at the end of the day, that is my Black grandmother, that is my Black sister, you are my Black sister, and you know that a Black man is more likely to rob you or commit some type of crime against you, and that's what we need to get down to the issue of. And like you were talking about earlier, like, hey, well, what's going on? You know, what do you think the answer is to one of the brothers that were speaking? I think it's the breakdown of the family. I think, like he said, because of our poor choices, and what happens is we look at domestic violence, for example. When domestic violence, women or men are even attacked, what is the first thing we say? Is like, you know what, it's not your what? It's not your fault. So that's what we do. We hold on to this narrative that, well, it's not our fault, and the issues in our community, they're not our fault, and the white man needs to give us something, the old white lady down the street is looking at me, and I don't know why she got braids in her hair, and we focus on all these other stupid things that don't matter. We don't get to the root of the fact that we're killing each other at a higher rate than any other race. It is self-hatred amongst us. I believe that we can do that, that we, my cousin, my mom's cousin, excuse me, coming from the church parking lot, and guess who stuck her up and robbed her at gunpoint? A Black man.
I need you to get to the point.
Like,
so
my
I can
point
respond.
is that, no, and I'm not trying to be funny, unless, like you said, we're gonna keep it respectful.
Yeah,
so
but you're monopolizing the whole conversation.
I'm
We're
not trying,
being
okay, I'm
able
gonna let
to-
you speak, but let's not get the
Yes.
attitudes and stuff, because you're my sister and I respect you. So
I
how
don't
you
have an
talk to
attitude.
them,
I'm being direct
but
to
how
you, but you're
talk to them,
literally
not gonna
speaking
talk
this,
to me.
and you're not going to do
Okay.
that with me either.
Okay,
so you're
I'm
stating your
respecting
point,
you.
and you've been stating your point for quite some
So
time. Do
say
you have
the
a
proper
reason
ways,
for
would
me
you
to
like,
respond?
would you allow me to respond? So that's a better response. Go ahead.
The response that I have for you is
Okay.
that everything you're saying does not exist in a vacuum. I actually agree with you in that, yes, there has been an incredible denigration of Black worth and Black pride in this nation. I think it's also very important to acknowledge what has contributed to that. And to state that it is only Black people that have contributed to that is a false flag. So we have to admit that. So in order to have this conversation around how we got here, you can't say, oh, well, we're caring about the white woman getting braids and that doesn't matter and this thing. All of that attaches. All of that is actually a very big part of the lack of worth of Black people.
I'll ask you, do you think we're resilient? What does resilience mean to you? Do you think we have to be perpetual victims, or do you think that Black people are resilient?
I think that those are two different conversations. I think because I think that the concept of Black people being victims is really trying to not provide accountability to where the root problem for the actual cause is. And if we keep saying that somebody is a victim and that doesn't mean that the other person should have to actually have accountability, then what are we really doing? You can do both. You can be a victim and be resilient.
How do we do both if you stay in the victimhood? That's my question.
But your statement about Black people staying in the victim place is also your point of view.
But how do we rise above it?
We continue to rise above it by, one, pouring into our communities with mutual aid, but two, by simultaneously making sure that we are challenging the systems that are in place to impede us. We have so many opportunities where we are trying to do mutual aid, and those things get disrupted by folks who want to have capitalist gain, by folks who want privatization. We used to have all these mom and pop businesses in our communities.
There's over 3 million Black millionaires in America right now. You are an intelligent Black woman that is successful.
That's irrelevant.
No one's stopping me from doing anything. I'm an intelligent Black woman that
Many
graduated and is
efforts have
successful.
tried to stop me from doing what I do. We are not all equal in our capabilities. And we are not all equal in our ability to be invested in by others.
I agree with
we
you.
are not
That's my
all
question
equal
of
in our
resilient.
trauma.
Are we resilient?
We can't say because it is a false equivalency.
I believe that every Black person has resilience.
We
from
keep
slavery
trying,
all the way
but we
until
keep trying to cause.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You've been voted out.
Them women back, dang that noise. The women back got the cooking. You know, my partner turned me on to the word victim a couple of years ago, before it became more popularized than it is today. And people do speak victim. People are victims, and they view themselves as victims a lot. But that question at the end, it was a couple of things that I want to touch bases on their conversation, because I feel like their conversation was good. I don't disagree with nothing that young lady had to say, to be honest with you. She said, are Black people resilient or victims? Now, when I think about this in totality, I once was a victim, then I became resilient. So I feel like you can be both at the same time. The majority, I feel like, speak victimhood. To be honest with you, I hate to say that, But I feel like the majority of us speak victim, live victim instead of resilient. But to be resilient, you may have to have been a victim or may have to have some sort of life experiences that forces you into resiliency. She also spoke about we are not all equal. We can't use the word we. We does a disservice to us as a whole, to be honest with you. That word we, because we are not a monolith. The things that you like and you identify with and you prioritize is not the same things that I identify with, that I like, that I prioritize. Ain't no we. And the word black also is getting it's bad. Because some people don't, I identify as an American. That's all I know. I don't identify as black. I don't identify as FBA no more also. You know, at one point in time, I know that my people are foundational to this land, but I don't identify with FBA. That's some foolishness that Tariq Nasheed created that is sort of like another thing to identify with. Identifying with shit is crazy. Identifying with being a conservative, a Republican, a Democrat is crazy. I identify with right and wrong. That's what I identify with. I identify with my experiences, lived experiences, and the things that, you know, mean something to me. Now, this woman, she grew up in Chicago. Chicago is a hellhole, from what I hear. I never been. But from what I hear, the statistics that I see, Chicago is a toilet bowl. You can flush that whole South Side down the toilet. For all I give a damn. And those people look like me. And those are black folks, majority up there doing those crimes and shooting and all that bullshit they got going on in Chicago. Now, her father was murdered by a black man. So she has a view of black on black violence that many people may not have. Many people think that racism will end one day, but I feel like it was created for this division and this dysfunction. But by her father being murdered by a black man, you know, I understand her plot and her plight. I understand her frustration because that is what made me resilient. Also, all the people I love was killed by people that look like them. I've been shot at times in my life, robbed. I was in the street. So in the street, these things happen. If you really in the street, you're going to take some L's. If you don't take no L's, you ain't really in the street. I've been robbed a multitude of times by people who look like me. I've been shot at for no reason by people who look like me. I had people say that they was going to ride for me, die for me. They got my back. They want to see me win. That didn't move a muscle when it was time to move. And that environment, I removed myself from that environment. And it made me hardened. But I realized at one point in my life that you can't receive with a hardened heart. So I had to let all those things go. I had to remove that hardness from my own people. And it's just interesting to hear this young lady speak about this because those stats, forget the stats, the reality of it, just being there and being amongst it. One thing I want to say too before I get into the next video that's about to play, or the next conversation that she's about to have, and I think I'm gonna have to break this up in two, is that conservatism and black people, you know, becoming more conservative and identifying with the Republican ideology has been popularized. And it seems like it's cool right now. But I feel like, you know, identify with what's right and wrong. Quit trying to identify and attach yourself to something because you need to attach yourself to something to feel like you belong to something. Forget that. Forget these fraternities and sororities and these Republicans and Democrats and this football team that you a fan of and this basketball team. Identify with what's right and wrong and what sits well in your soul. You know, quit wanting some attachments because you a fuck nigga and you can't do it out here on your own. I hate to talk like that, but it's just the reality of it. You can't stand on your own, so you need something to attach yourself to. You lame as hell.
First, I want to kind of get rid of this like right left ordeal. I really want to talk about just like our own personal views and what we've experienced, what we've seen. And when it comes to your claim about black on black crime, I really do believe, and I think a lot of people here do believe, especially based off of personal experiences and everything, that it is just lack of accountability. In the black community, we need to start taking responsibility for our actions and stop pointing our fingers at other people and the white man. Because to be honest,
why can't both happen at the same time?
Because
both are causes.
Because you got to clean your own house before you go complain.
Why?
Because
if you're dirtying my house, if you keep pouring shit into my house and I'm cleaning it, why can't I do both? Why can't I clean my house and bar the windows from you shitting on my house?
Because it begins with responsibility within us. If we're like, okay, oh, the white person's doing this to me, the white person's not, we're not going to ever come to the core of the issue.
They are.
We need to take responsibility.
And it's not even just the white person, because now we have seen very many races, people of very many backgrounds that are actively participating in the effort to keep a working class down. Like that is absolutely a fact. It's not just white people. So I don't attend to that. But I will say the reality of there being systems in place is real. Over-policing is a real thing. You know what's also been really real is the effort of violence interruption in certain communities, right? So we've seen this in Detroit. We've seen this in New York. We've seen this in Baltimore, where there are communities that have said, what we're going to do is we're going to be like a neighborhood watch for our community, so that before the popo even come, before 12 even rolls up in here, we're going to actually put ourselves in between the conflict and calm it down. And that has been incredibly effective. But you know what? It's not funded. It's not funded. And you would think that like city councils and mayors and governors would say, shit, you know what? This is going to save us so much money. Because why? Taxpayers keep having to pay for the fault of these police officers. And even though we say, well, only a certain number of people have died, that doesn't dispel the fact that a large amount, more black people are imprisoned than any other group in this nation. And that is not by accident.
Again, I started with accountability, and it just seemed like in that
But I disagree with you.
No,
I don't disagree with you.
Because here's the thing: look at our media. Look at rap. Look at what we're glorifying. You're right. We're glorifying violence.
Who's we? Who's we? Who's
the black community?
Who controls the
black community?
Who controls the distribution of these sources of media?
And who takes it in? And who takes it in?
Listen, if you're okay, so let me put it in this context. If I have a company, right, and you guys are my employees, and I determine what you get to eat every day, that's also going to determine how you exist in this company, right? Like if you come to work and I say the only thing you can eat is processed foods and fried foods, and you're not going to get to have the best vegetables, etc. What's that going to affect? Your health. That's going to affect your ability to operate, etc. This is how the United States operates. There's a lot of us that don't want to admit that as much as accountable as we want to be, all of our brains also don't operate the same way. Some of us are much more apt to be indoctrinated than others. That's a fact. There is a 1% of people that knows this. There's a whole show called Mad Men that's about advertising, etc. And if we don't acknowledge multiple things at the same time, then we simply cannot stop it. We can be as accountable as we want to be. And I hope that if you're right, because I hope you're right, I wish that it was a situation where if black people could just be accountable, then nothing else would matter. But unfortunately, that hasn't been the case, because we have seen when we have Black Wall Street in Tulsa and we have Black Wall Street in Durham, that when we actually do hold our own and build our own communities, they will still come and run it down.
Pause. You've been voted out. Please return to your seat.
She did give an example of when black people was accountable. She gave an example. You know, that was the quickest one also. They hurry up and got that brother up out of there, to be honest with you. But I want to give an example about something. Over policing. It is a real thing. I seen it exist. I come from an era of when, well, not an era. It was an era, but I come from a community that at the entrance and the exit, the police would be there 10 to 20 hours a day. Crime was going on in the community. Drugs was running rampant. Folks was millionaires from hustling. 100,000 easy. The stupidest person on the block had $100,000. So it was necessary that the police come through and do what they do, though. But who is to say that those police officers was righteous, was doing a righteous thing, and was holding people accountable for their actions? Even though crime was happening in that community, it was over policed. I can remember Cop Killer Miller words like it happened yesterday. He told me, he knew I didn't have driver's license after he pulled me over, so he wrote me a ticket. He said, every time I see this car move, I'm going to write you another ticket. I'm going to write you a ticket. I'm going to keep writing you tickets every time I see this car move. And he didn't lie. He never took me to jail, but he wrote me so many tickets, it took me forever to get my driver's license. I had a car when I was 15. I was down to 21 by the time I got a driver's license because he kept pulling me over. Over policing is a real thing. I don't want to keep exposing myself, but over policing is a real thing. They put a statistic up on the side of the screen. I hope y'all seen that, to where they was talking about Neighborhood Watch reduces crime. I think Neighborhood Watch is a good thing. And if it does reduce crime, why don't we prioritize that and make that a thing, or make that a job? You know, where you have neighborhood watches in all communities, where you employ somebody. They add that to the HOA fees, or they add that to the rent in an apartment complex, where you have somebody at the entrance watching the neighborhood so crime isn't going on. So it's a person looking out for the best of everybody, the children, the mothers, and they're ready to call the police, or they're ready to take action to get a situation resolved immediately. Somebody of the community. That would be a great thing. Make that a job, an industry. And then, you know, I participated in music. So when she started talking about accountability and the music industry and rap, everybody want to like say that rap is this bad thing. You know, I want to be cautious when I say this. Rap, do y'all believe, help me out in the comment section, art imitates life? Because if y'all believe that, if y'all believe art imitates life, then you believe that what people are living, they make it, and they speak it into their art form. They speaking their life experiences. If they talking about doing these drugs and these Percocets and what's going on in the clubs, making it rain and this crime, and I'm shooting my ops and all of that, art imitates life. So life have to be lived to be able to create the art. People embrace it. It's people that fund it. The people that fund it prioritizes the negative art instead of funding and highlighting the positive art. So who's really at fault?
Oh my God.
Joshua.
Hello, Joshua.
Yeah. So I have two claims I want to settle. So I'm originally from New Orleans, right? And I've seen black on black crime my whole life, right?
Yes.
I don't believe it have nothing to deal with the police. It's more with the community, because there's a lot of pride that's in that city, where to the point where this person can't tell me nothing, I'm gonna kill him, I'm gonna take him out.
Yeah.
It's that simple in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Now in Cali it's probably the same way, but I feel like every state is different. You probably the way how your belief is might be right? But in New Orleans, it's a little different. Also, my second claim is this: we proclaim so much about Black Lives Matter, but when it comes down to a white person killing a black person, it's a big deal. It just don't make no sense to me.
Do you know what the statement Black Lives Matter is actually stating?
Yeah, well, just started off from George Floyd.
Start off from Mike Brown.
Mike Brown. Okay.
So Black Lives Matter is really simply just stating that when Black people are murdered by the police, that our lives should matter, and that oftentimes it is not considered. It is oftentimes presented as we deserved it, or we must have done something to cause it, and that our lives are disposable. We also don't ever see true justice on the same level as others when the police incur violence against Black people. So Black Lives Matter is a statement asserting that our lives are worth justice, our lives are worth preservation, and we have seen in innumerable instances a level of restraint operated between the police and people of other races that they do not seem to carry with Black people. So that's what Black Lives Matter means. It doesn't mean that anyone else's life doesn't matter. It means that ours matter just as much as their lives.
That's good that you cleared it out for people. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I appreciate you. Now, as it comes to New Orleans, tell me this. Well, first of all, it was, I think it's the senator of Louisiana who literally made a campaign ad, Kennedy it was, that said, do you want Louisiana to be run by crackheads? Like he said that, like straight
up. They have
up.
a bunch of them there. Yeah. They
So
do.
here's my question about New Orleans. Would you say that New Orleans gets, that particular areas of New Orleans, for instance, like the Ninth Ward?
The Ninth Ward is crazy, but I'm just saying they crazy.
Would you say that funding and attention is dispersed equally across New Orleans in terms of resources? Because I know that from living through Katrina, that is absolutely not the case.
I agree with you in that case. Everybody's not equal when it comes down to resources. For sure, I agree with you.
Here's the thing I want to just impart is that I think that we have a very distorted version of what resiliency and what restorative practice is, because we live in a time where we're seeing so many things happen so fast. So like we've seen technology like advance so fast, right? Like we have seen just our lives shift so fast that I think that we forget that as humans, our ability to recalibrate, to heal from trauma is simply not the same as the things that we are watching in technology. And so we cannot just casually think that people just get over things. Katrina, people in New Orleans are still reeling from Katrina.
Yeah, they are. That's true. That's true.
That
is true.
So when we talk about the amount of crime and violence that is still living and happening explicitly in Katrina, we have to also talk about the amount of trauma, the amount of drug use, the amount of policing, the amount of all of these things that physically harm people across the world, not just in the United States, across the world, in communities that are not being served, and how those communities never get the chance to quote unquote pull themselves up by the bootstraps.
Yeah, I agree. I personally agree. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I agree. Yeah,
that was
for sure.
fun.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Thanks, Josh.
No problem.
That was the only person that they didn't put the flags up and make him stop. The time ran out. Salute to Josh. You know, he said that black on black crime has nothing to do with the police. I agree with that. This was a simple one. She explained eloquently how Black Lives Matter as a statement and what the statement meant. I feel like the statement is cool. Black lives do matter. But as an organization, them people didn't prioritize, black. The funds that was accumulated from Black Lives Matter, and they went and bought mansions and did dumb shit with the money instead of prioritizing LGBTQ. They didn't even identify as black, really. They identified as gay. A lot of black people will identify what they view as more successful. The LGBTQ people identify as gay more than they identify as black in certain instances. She talked about the resources not being equal. That is so true, man. We don't prioritize the advancement of us as human beings like how we should. And it's hard to prioritize the advancement when you're still dealing with traumatic experiences. Let's continue on.
Hey, before we go any further, we want to take a moment to say thanks so much to Straight Arrow News for powering the fact checks in this video. Straight Arrow News is on a mission to raise the bar on that link. You're not just supporting this channel. You also take advantage of a better way to get the news. Welcome back to Trustworthy Journalism. Thanks again to Straight Arrow News for partnering with us on this episode. Now, let's get into it.
My next claim is systemic racism isn't a theory. It's our lived reality backed by data and history.
Hello?
Hello, John.
John Samuel.
Hello, John Samuel. First name. All right.
Blame my parents.
Hi, parents.
I want to listen to you first. Why do you feel that? Why do you feel that way? Why do you feel
John went to debate training before he came here. Okay. Ultimately, I feel that way because it's simply just facts. It's in the books, and that's why there have been laws to challenge it. There have been innumerable instances where actual systems were created specifically for the impediment of Black people to advance. We have also seen numerous instances where there were things created for Black people to advance, and they were taken back under the auspices of, we don't want them to advance. Ultimately, systemic racism exists in our institutions on a government level, in our institutions, whether it's prisons or schools, and it is undeniable because they are actively trying to reinstate it right now.
Can you give me an example of one of those systems that you believe perpetuates that cycle of racism? Redlining? Okay.
Yes.
And how does that, can you elaborate? Like, how is that affecting the Black community?
Do you know what redlining is?
I know a little bit. I'm not an expert.
Redlining was a system that was created to determine property values, and that said Black people can only live in certain neighborhoods and not in other neighborhoods. And the redlining lowered the property values of those Black neighborhoods by stating that they were more savage, that they were more dangerous, etc. Thus, they were not able to own property that was on a level of par to their white counterparts. There were also many efforts at just simply not allowing Black people to get loans for property, putting them in predatory scenarios where they were being essentially unable to own land. And that inability to own land, but still having to pay out a mortgage, if you will, or a rent, continue to put Black people in a conundrum of not being able to excel at the same economic rate as their white counterparts.
What I'm hearing from you, if I'm hearing correctly, is it feels like in the United States that for a while we've kind of established these systems at their foundation, and they've continued on, and they've continually just oppressed Black people, and we haven't dismantled them, and we haven't done much to, so they continue to complete the cycle. Is that what I'm hearing correctly?
Well, in many of these systems, they have been dismantled maybe in name, but because this country has never dismantled the culture of racism, they end up still living in practice. So we see that, for instance, in the way that the appraisal system works. Now, we saw there was an entire documentary on how appraisals have been also very racist, home appraisals, right? So your ability to sell your house for the value that it deserves.
Right.
There were a number of homes, particularly in Marin County, California, where Black people had one appraisal when they had their Blackness up. So they had their dashikis hanging, and they had their, they had their Black Good Times poster. But then when they removed all of those items and put up white people and a dog in the house, and then had their white friends come and pose as the owners of the home, the appraisal was significantly higher. And we have seen that in a number of instances. Now, of course, that is just Marin County, but there are a number of other scenarios where this has been relayed. And that's why there were certain efforts by the Democratic Party to state, okay, well, we're going to try and step in for this.
I actually remember that case, and I watched it with the family, and I thought that was just really just terrible. But the problem I guess I have with systemic racism is, I guess for somebody like me, where my family comes from, the Deep South, you probably don't even know it, Aliceville, Alabama.
Okay.
That's where my grandparents are from. And my grandpa came, if you saw the house that he grew up in, I'm not trying to be funny, it looked like a slave house. It was just, they grew up in poverty. And the fact that he was able to go from that and get the highest rank enlisted in the United States Navy amidst, all these, systems, so to speak, and he was able to buy his own house out in San Diego. He was able to, pass on these things to his son, my dad, and his grandchildren. Now I'm able to get an education. I was able to get my undergrad, my master's, that, the great-great-grandson of enslaved peoples can now say that, educated and can even run for Congress. I don't see how these systems are still in place as they were before, because before I would say you do have a little bit of a foothold. You do have some validity there. But I just think these days when we call it systemic racism, really what we're calling it is those people who may still be in those institutions, those individual people who may actually be racist and hold some racist ideals, who are continuing to perpetuate this, I believe it's those people. So in all reality, the problem is not the systemic racism. The problem is us. The problem starts with those people who are perpetuating these, kind of, racist ideals. And so I feel like just to attack these systems is just, it's nonsensical.
Who's
Like-
running the systems?
Like which system? You're talking about
Whether
Congress,
it's the prison
government?
industrial, whether it's the prison industrial complex, we're seeing this now with immigration and ICE. We're seeing this also with the effort at not making schools available for equal level of schooling available with the voucher systems that are now allowing tax dollars to allow people to go to segregated schools.
Right.
Who is controlling those systems? So for instance, in Tennessee, right?
Yeah.
So in Tennessee, you have a Senate and a House of Representatives that is largely controlled by white Republicans and that have actively said, we are not going to consider what the people want in our constituencies. We are going to simply just do what we want to do, to the point where they have removed.
So it's only in those states that have largely white legislators or largely white people are controlling these systems. I'm not trying to put
All right,
words in your
guys,
mouth.
I'm so sorry. You have been voted out. Please return to your seat.
Thank you.
I'm glad she mentioned Tennessee because that's where I'm originally from, even though I'm in North Carolina right now. Tennessee, a lot of the funding that the government gives to Tennessee for welfare and certain instances that black people need those welfare and those food stamps and the government assistance, it never reaches the people. Tennessee and Hawaii is the states that have that gets government assistance and gives the least to the people. It's a statistical fact that that's true. Now, the conversation was systemic racism is a fact, not theory. He said the problem is us. He spoke about how his family overcame in this rural part of Alabama that nobody has ever heard of. It's a lot of success stories. It's a lot of people that find their way through the cracks. And that's the minority, though. The majority of people have to deal with this systematic oppression that has happened to them. Now, and I want to talk about a couple of things because when they was talking, I wrote this down because I this just came to my mind. So, the wealth gap, it was systemically created to have a financial gap between their people and us. Unequal education. Time has changed and things are getting better slowly and slowly, but people are still traumatized and dealing with the past, and trauma is transferable through the DNA. Trauma is transferable through the DNA. You can believe that or not, though. But in unequal education, you got to think about it. People they getting books from old books in these black schools, and it's still black schools. The quality of the school, the desks is bad, the gym is bad. People aren't excited to come to school. The food is low vibrational. That's a unequal education. Then you got to go to this other school. You might send your child to this other school across town, 50 miles, 100 miles away, and they got beautiful brand new gyms. They learning on iPads and get to take them home. They don't even got the books from the 80s. They eating salads and fruit and drinking organic juice. I didn't want to drink that animal milk when I was in school. I'm a vegan now. Like some of the things that I was forced to consume, I didn't want that. I didn't have no choice. I couldn't even choose to do what was in my best interest. So unequal education plays a part. You have to be self-taught when you get away from that education because they teaching you what they want to teach you. They ain't teaching you what you need. Healthcare inequalities also, and access to healthcare. If you ain't working for this specific company or you working for this company where you barely making money, so you barely getting healthcare. And then we know, women, they trying to take all women out, man. I will be scared for my wife to go to the hospital. I gotta be there. my mom to go to the hospital. They trying to kill all women, man, because they the main people that's producing life. Disparities in the justice system also is a systematic racist situation, because another person from another race can commit the same exact crime, you know, get lower time. You know, they might be more financially stable than me. They can afford a better lawyer and don't even have to show up to court for the crime. Me, I might can't even fund a lawyer. I might can't afford a lawyer. So the systemic racist situation in the justice system is sick. Sick. And if you say I'm lying, then man, you just ain't being true with yourself. Real talk. Let's get into the next person. See what they talking about.
Oh, Lord.
So to go back to your claim, you basically said something about Tennessee and how they said what exactly you said they are not in favor of what their people said, or?
Yeah, Tennessee has actively said, you know, we're not really listening to our constituency. We're not even going to allow them in the gallery when we're voting on certain issues. So for instance, like when it comes to like guns in the classroom, like the constituency very largely said, we do not want guns in the classroom. And they were like, well, we don't care. We're going to do it anyway. We've also seen them actively silence members of the House of Representatives who are Black and not silence someone who is doing the exact same action who is a white woman, Gloria. Shout out to the Justins.
You are right, actually, on this aspect. I did actually remember a time where 2 Black Democrats, I believe, were actually not allowed to speak. And that was interesting. And I found that really like insane, considering they're representatives of the state.
Yeah.
So no, I totally can get where you're coming from, but I don't think that's a institutionalized problem where it's a law per se. I think it's more so a personal vendetta in a way.
What's the difference if you are a lawmaker and you're exacting your personal ability, your personal choice through impediment of law change?
So if we're going to go based on systemic racism, it has to be institutionalized, which means it has to be written into law, made public. When it comes to that aspect, that's not necessarily made public by law. That's made public by choice and actual discrimination by person.
So I can give you an example in Tennessee.
Okay.
So for instance, in Tennessee, we can say that they are put into law that now tax dollars, the public's tax dollars will be supporting voucher systems. The voucher systems for the schools allow parents to choose whatever school they want their child to go to using taxpayer money. And these schools can be private schools. And private schools are not in any way limited from creating systems of segregation. And this is actually how segregated schools was carried out previous to Brown versus Board of Education. So this is a systemic example. We also can acknowledge that systemic examples come from not always it being written into law. And I think that is a real straw man argument for the way that a lot of colorblind racism is carried out in the United States. And what happens when we do that is we ignore the fact that most of the people making the laws are not going to put their racism on the books.
Oh, that's true. Obviously not going to put on the books. But when it comes to the Civil Rights Acts of 1964, then you also want to talk about the one in 1968. They did actually give more fair housing equality.
That was the goal.
Yeah, that's true.
But you see, that's the thing. It's like if so that's the difficult part of not changing a culture. You can change the law all day, but as Martin Luther King Jr., as the Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. talks about in his final book, he says, I feel like I integrated my people into a burning house because he understood America to be a place of morality.
Well, when it came back to even back in the 1960s, like Lyndon B. Johnson actually proposed many systems in place
But after that, people still got lynched.
Well, I can't really like say that's a systemic problem. That's definitely a personal heart problem. Those are more people's individual choices against someone else. But when it came down to,
if the system that's in place does not incarcerate those people or create any repercussions for those actions, then it is systemic.
Well,
because when you don't allow for there to be repercussions for harmful behaviors of a people, you're literally saying our system is okay with this. So that's what Black Lives Matter is about, right? Saying like, okay, if police are gonna act in this way, well, there should at least be fair repercussions across all people that they're doing this to, and they're not carrying out those repercussions for Black people. Why? And so the system is supporting this personal point of view that you're talking about. And that's what makes it also systemic, along with the fact that we know for a fact that the number of Black people incarcerated is greater per capita than white people. We know that Black people are having longer sentences for the same crimes than white people. That's not me making that up. Like, that is actual data.
All right,
So
pause.
systemic is real.
Pause. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your
Thank
seat.
you.
Thank you. I'm not going to be too long with my reaction to this, because what's intriguing about this whole thing is that they're like backing government, and like they speaking to a point to where like they're saying that what government is doing is right. They're like being protective of white people, and I don't understand it. So he spoke to a point to where he said that's an individual's choice, not a law. You know, if people can choose to wrong an individual and it be backed by the government with no consequences, then at the end of the day, that is a systemic situation that needs to be changed, because Black people can't do a harm to a people and it be backed by the government.
All right. How you doing, Amanda? I'm Ryan.
Ryan. Nice
to meet you. Thanks for being here. All right. Well, what I would say is, as far as systematic racism, right? I think most of us would agree that at the very least it has occurred in this country.
Okay.
Right. You know, we've had slavery, we've had Jim Crow segregation, all these different things.
Yeah.
I think my argument would be that right now in modern America, I don't think, at the very least, it's not as prevalent as it has been to where it could stop us from being successful. Okay. I would say that it's not a thing anymore where it needs to be talked about so much and so much attention focused on it. I don't think that currently there is systematic racism in a way that it's going to be harmful to us. You know, like I said, to stop us. If anything, really, I think institutions such as things with DEI.
What do you think DEI is?
Basically, I think that it's in a way it's racism against other races outside of Blacks. And so,
where did you get that concept of it from?
I've researched a lot of things. I looked at different clips from both sides of the argument, things like that. But
Okay.
basically, my point is, I think that as far as systematic racism, I think that there's evidence from the other side, in that there's different things that are pushing Black people up in ways that are not fair,
Why is
and
it
different
not fair?
things like that. Because I think that we should be merit-based. I think that should always be merit-based, and where we're in, you know, when there's jobs and the different things like that, race should not be something that's considered. And so, I think that, let's say that there are ways right now where systematic racism is still alive. Again, it's not holding us back to a point where we can still be successful. We've seen so many examples, you know, today in modern times where Black Americans can, you know, there's no opportunities that I have that a white person or that a white person has that I don't have. I believe that all
Are you
opportunities.
sure about that? Can you actually say that?
I would say that I have every opportunity in this country to be successful, to do what I want to do, and to stand on business that every other race has. Absolutely. And
Do you have the
again,
same support?
even if I don't have the same support, I can do what I got to do.
Do you have the same support?
I probably have more. I
Do
can
you have
have
the
more
same
support than
community
others.
support?
I have excellent community support.
That's
Absolutely.
lucky for you.
Sure. Yeah.
Where did you grow up in a lower income, middle income, high income community?
It was middle income.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, I think that even those who grow up in very needy situations, right, they may not have been dealt a great hand of cards.
But they still.
They can still, you know, I think it comes down to accountability. You can still play your hand and play your cards strategically in a way where you can still be successful, you can still do your thing, and you can wind up on top. And there's nothing stopping them from doing that.
Would you say that low-income white people and low-income Black people have the same ability to excel?
I would say they have the same ability to excel.
Okay, so I'm going to start countering from that point then. So ultimately, we know that our low-income communities are not given the same access to resources on a myriad of levels. They don't even have the same air quality, okay? We know that low-income communities in general are also going to be much more policed than other communities. We know that policing as it exists in the United States came from slave catching. So even the tradition of policing comes from protecting property, not protecting people, okay? So let's start there. When we talk about low-income, like the working class Black people in this nation, we know that they have never been considered, ever, whether they were slaves or not. They just weren't considered. And we also know, as our brother Isaiah pointed out, that there are still people in very powerful positions that hold very personal positions as it relates to racism. And so in that way, they are impediments to someone moving forward. When we talk about DEI, the concept of DEI is not about lowering a standard. It's about widening the options. So we live in a nation that I feel like a lot of y'all are looking at the United States as a long history of something. We have a short history. All right. For 400 years, there was slavery. Black people were not even considered whole humans. We were 3/5 human. After the Civil War, during Reconstruction, Black people were then subjected to the Black Laws. The Black Laws were specifically for Black people. The Black Laws incarcerated Black people at such an exorbitant rate that they were able to get another slave labor force through the 13th Amendment, because you had Black people that were serving entire life, like months-long, years-long sentences for jaywalking.
Okay.
So when we look at these things, we act as if, well, why can't we just get over that? That's 2 generations previous, okay? So if a father in the early 1900s was incarcerated for 2 years, how do you think that would impede their family from being able to grow, right?
Sure.
Now you're affecting the ability for their children to have 2 parents in the home. You also now have a mother who's like incredibly stressed and may have to always be working, so she's not able to parent, etc. We also know that there is a continued effort in this nation to not have Black people know the history of this nation. Like our good sis here was talking about, like, we have resilience, but this nation actively works systemically to keep that from us, right? We look in Florida at the laws that they are passing to not allow education about our past. And we know that if we don't know where we came from, how can we know where we're going?
Sure. Okay.
All right,
So,
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
all good.
That's flags.
Yeah.
That was a great conversation. That was a real good conversation. I really liked the point and the part at the end where she talked about the nation actively works to hide our history. I think not just the Black race, the white race also, in totality. I wonder what is the benefit of having people not know their history, not know who they originally are, not know their ethnicity, their genealogy, their just know who the past, their lineage. What is the benefit of removing the history? Because that is a true statement. If you identify as Black, then that means you really don't know who you are. Who is your great-great-grandmama? Where does she come from? If you identify as white, you don't know who you really are. If you don't know that them people from over there somewhere and your great-great-grandmama is from such and such in the UK or in the Caucasoid Mountains. If you don't know that, if your people ain't from indigenous to America or the African, somewhere in the African continent, if you don't know that, then at the end of the day, you don't know who you is. But, you know, he said modern America, systemic racism is limited. He talked about DEI is racism against other races. He also said DEI is pushing Black people up in a position that they don't deserve. He is more merit-based. Conservatives are more merit-based. But you know, that is true that it pushes homosexuals up. It pushes Black people up. It pushes other races up that feel like they're the minority, DEI. But, you know, at one point in time, and it still exists, it's just hidden, other races allow things to happen to where they benefited to be able to create generational wealth for their loved ones. And they was included only. So DEI has been used in a way that is not beneficial. It has been a tool to hinder some to raise others up. But it will always be a tool because it'll always be a division between people that will be excluded and some people will be included. So it's a war in this country, to me, for people to be financially stable, for people to be able to obtain wealth. And it's going to always be some sort of structure, some sort of system in place to hinder a group of individuals. That was a great conversation. Let's continue on.
yeah.
Hi.
Hi again.
We cool now?
We good. We good. I think we I think we're on the same, we're kind of looking at the same side of the same coin. And I think because I think we both want the betterment of the Black community. And I think we're maybe coming from it from different ways. And so I do respect your position to what you were saying as well, that there are certain things and powers at play. And I've experienced racism firsthand. A lot of conservatives may try to act like, oh, there's no racism in America. I absolutely believe there is racism in America. I believe racist people exist. I just don't think that the systems as they stand today are inherently racist, because I've seen too many Black people overcome. And I just feel like a lot of times what's left out of the dialogue is self-accountability and like self-will. We talked about how we were 3/5 of a person, but now we are 100%, I guess, according to the law or whatever, a person. And I feel like at the end of the day, if you wanted to walk out here right now and decide, you know what, I want to change my career, I want to do that, you can. And that's why so many people, and Nigerians come here, and Indians come here, and so many people who are not white, who are supposed to be discriminated against because they're not white, they come here and they become doctors and lawyers. Why? Because to your point, there's community. There's a sense of pride about, you know what, I got to go honor my parents back in Nigeria. I'm part Nigerian. I have to go honor my parents. I have to go honor my elders. They're not twerking and shaking booty. They're getting
They are literally twerking and shaking and booty in
the
Nigeria.
Nigerians I know ain't doing it. If they are
We
twerking and shaking, but
literally
they
learned it
doctors
from Africa.
They're doctors twerking and shaking booty. So maybe they can shake because they got the money to back it up. But do you see what you're saying? But do you see what I'm saying though? We have to be honest, Amanda. When Indians come here,
as a fellow daughter of an immigrant,
okay,
right? So my mother's from Grenada. My mother did come here and was able to work and was able to get green cards for folks. So shout out to my mom. There's a very big difference in growing up somewhere and coming from a place where you are the majority and where your people are running the show than being somewhere where your people have been subjugated the entire time your people have been here.
But your mama came here and she wasn't the majority, so how did she succeed?
She succeeded because she came here with the fortitude of coming from a place.
Her resilience, right?
No, but
and she had her village.
Let me say what I'm saying.
Okay, I'll let you unpack.
If we don't acknowledge divide and conquer in the United States, we are having a pointless conversation.
I agree.
We have to acknowledge that there is a concerted effort at divide and conquer in the United States. We're literally watching it happen right now with an effort to divide and conquer and have Black people fighting immigrants and have Black people saying that immigrants don't matter.
And so fighting white people.
White people is not the point. The concept of white people is about people who are upholding a supremacy of whiteness versus people who understand that there should be an egalitarianism. There should be an equality.
That we are becoming the new white supremacists.
We are.
We've been putting them on a pedestal.
We are.
We feel like we can't do anything.
No, it's not that we're putting them. It's not that we're putting them
on
on a pedestal. It's that we are joining them and instead weaponizing our Blackness against our people. When we do what you're saying, we are saying, I am better because I figured it out, and so you're the problem because you didn't figure it out.
But Amanda, what about if I believe that the American dream is, I have a right to that as well? Is that me joining white people, or is that me saying, you know what, I want a life for my dream? The American dream for me, because it may look different from other people. Some people it's a boss chick. For me, I want my kids to grow up in a wonderful neighborhood. I want them to go to college. I want to have a 401k. I want to do this. I want to do that. So I feel like a lot of times in the Black community, we associate anything that's right or that's just or that's striving forward with whiteness. So when you say that we're working with them,
it's whiteness, it's capitalism. And I think that's what we have to understand the difference of. The concept of capitalism always is grounded in exploitation.
But Amanda, we're sitting here benefiting from capitalism, and you know that because you would want to move to a
that we are benefiting. I understand that we are benefiting from capitalism, but I also understand that we would have other people and a majority of people benefit if we were not solely capitalist. That is what it means to be a Black radical. It's to understand that I can benefit as well as others.
So Amanda, what is your solution then? Because we know that capitalism benefits us, and people are coming here every day.
My solution is what I continue to say. We need to have coalition building across cultural differences, across ethnicities, across classes.
And that includes collaborating with white people.
I've never said it didn't.
But I feel
this obsession with white people fails to acknowledge the fact that there are people who benefit from white supremacy.
But we live in America,
Let me finish
Amanda.
my point. There are people who benefit from white supremacy that do not identify themselves as white. They don't consider that to be the most important element of their identity, because they understand that at the end of the day, we need to see each other as humans that all deserve a right to exist.
Exactly.
We all deserve a right to exist, and I shouldn't have to earn my right to exist. And that is what capitalism does.
What makes you think that you have to earn it? That's what I'm saying.
That is what this nation is. You do have to earn it. You do. Yes, you do. That is why we are criminalizing the poor. We are criminalizing the poor on a regular basis. How so? Because we're not even allowing for a wage to happen to allow people to get out of poverty. We are seeing inflation grow.
We both have people in our family that have done it, so we can't.
No, we have not had people that are done it. My mother came to America with an entire nursing degree. I can't say, oh, well, my mother did it. Why can't you? Because my mother
was pregnant at 19 from the south side of Chicago with no degree and still made
good
something
for
of
your
herself.
mom. But this is the thing. saying.
So we can't
your
do
mom
it.
Isn't, I'm not, it's not. The question isn't whether or not some people can do it. The question and the reality is that it is not available to everyone in an equal way.
And that's unfortunate, man. But you know we live in a
It's
broken
not a matter-
society. I went to
well, then
Nigeria
that's what
and they're
we're
having the
talking
same
about.
problems, and
But
there's a
that's
bunch
what
of
we're
black
talking
people that are
about.
running
It's a broken
Nigeria.
society.
But it's the same thing in
But
Nigeria. and there
Nigeria
are black
is a
people in
broken
power-
society,
with black
whereas
people in
Burkina
power.
Faso is not. Burkina Faso is not.
That's time.
My final claim is black.
You know, I'm gonna converse about this last claim that she has put up right here. I'm gonna let the next people speak. Then I'm gonna get up off of this thing though. But I want to say something, and to the conversation that was just had, I feel as if, you know, as a group, black people need to embrace capitalism because that is the system and that is the structure that runs the finances in this country. I don't know how we can unify to do it with all this violence and this killing going on and these people wanting to be superior towards others, and some people will want to see you get some money but not more than them type behavior. Because I celebrate all my partners' wins, all my friends' wins. It's just that I feel like capitalism is always going to have a top and it's always going to have a bottom. It's not equal. She said that by her talking about criminalizing the poor, earning your right to exist. But if we could unify and use capitalism to our benefit, capitalizing off of the labor of others, that's what I think capitalism is, to sum it up. Capitalizing off of the labor of others. Don't matter who the race is, capitalism don't care. Capitalism don't care if you're black, white, whatever the hell you is. It's capitalizing off of other people's backs. The only way that we can do that, like an individual can do it, but he has to be lucky. It's far and few that can do it. But if we could unify and do it, I think that that'll be something that'll be like, instead of talking about other systems, Marxism and whatever schism and ism, I feel like embracing the structure that is created in this country in a unified way will benefit us more than if we received reparations, even though I still want them reparations. Let's go.
Conservatism fails to meet the needs of the working class. Ant dog. Okay, talk to me.
So I think black conservatives, we're the ones who really want the best for working people.
Oh.
I think we're the ones, and like a lot of the liberals, a lot of the leftists, they want us to do things like office work. They want us to go reparations, try to get things from the government and get handouts. We say, hey, go out there and work. Go out there and get these jobs that are available. Work with your hands, do skilled trades. That's where a lot of us talk about, skilled trades. So working class, that's really a black conservative thing, in my humble opinion.
I would beg to disagree. I think that would be true if black conservatism also created pathways for people to get those jobs and also to be able to challenge the corporations that are using their labor, that are stealing from them and not impeding them from having a union. So for instance, like in the South, right? I just left North Carolina where I met with the USSW, the Union of Southern Service Workers. This is an unofficial union of individuals who work at places like Waffle House, at Food Lion, etc. And their unofficial union is unofficial because the conservatives in that state will not allow for them to be officialized.
Legitimized.
Legitimized.
There you go. I got you.
It will not allow for them to be legitimized because then they would be able to push back legitimately on the corporations to get fair wages, right? So like someone was telling me in this organization that she was in Baltimore getting $15.25 as a minimum wage. And then when she moved just one state away, she was now only getting $7.25 for minimum wage, but the cost of living was the same for her. So when we talk about, you know, the effort of saying go out and get these jobs and get these trades, et cetera, I think that is valid, but I think that the impediments by leveling up corporations and by pouring into the effort of corporations to keep billionaires, as black conservatives, you are actually cutting off the ability for those people to excel.
Okay, I understand your point, but a lot of us are more about being self-sufficient. So the South, a friend of mine down there, King Randall, has a school for boys. He's 22 years old. He has a bunch of kids living with him. He's teaching them physical skills they can do. Okay, being a mechanic, working on your car, working on your house, doing things with your hands. So you don't got to worry about corporations. You could be your own man. You could be your own woman. And also, didn't you also say earlier that you're against unions? But are you for them now?
I never said that.
Oh, so you're for unions?
Absolutely.
So when the unions keep black folks out, you're for that as well? Because that's traditionally what they've done, keep black folks out, correct?
Obviously, I am not for that. The reality is that unions have definitely in the beginning kept black folks out. And the reason why they were keeping black folks out is because after the Civil War, when there was Reconstruction, you had all these black people that had been used with free labor and they had skills, right? Whether they were a blacksmith or a carpenter or whatever. However, they could not get jobs because the white people who now had to fend for themselves, if you will, because they didn't have slaves, they had to go and learn all these trades.
Right.
And so they actively kept black people out of those jobs. And then what they would do is that when they would, as a union, say, we're going on strike, the black people would be like, well, we'll work because they won't let us in their union anyway. And then when they would go and actually get those jobs that the people were on strike for, they would hang them. They would lynch them. So yes, these are real things that have taken place. But we keep having these conversations where we acknowledge the past when it's convenient, and then we only stay in the present when it's convenient. So you can't simultaneously say, well, everybody's fine now and there's no systemic racism at the same time as stating that there are unions that are racist and unions that aren't racist. Ultimately, there is racism in the United States. It is deeply embedded. We have seen it in a myriad of examples, even just yesterday or today. And black conservatives are working against the working class because they are actively placing their vision, their ideology of black excellence in economics solely.
Well, there is racism
And in individual economics. And I think that's really the big difference of what we're talking about right now. You're talking about every man for themselves. Every man for themselves.
No. I don't say that.
Oh, you don't say that?
I say that we have to be individual as people, as black people, but still get all of us on the same page. My friends at school, he's not just looking out for himself, he's looking for all these kids as well. So it's like, okay, I bring myself up and then bring everybody else up, rather than relying upon the corporations and white people to lift this up. That's where we come from as
I
black
think there's
conservatives.
a difference between relying on and acknowledging that there are impediments of. And I want to acknowledge the reality that we keep seeming to bump up against, which is that everybody has equal ability, and they don't. Everybody doesn't have the same impediments. So, for instance, I grew up with a single parent, not because...
Me too.
I grew up with a
Same.
single parent, not because my father was some deadbeat that didn't have... My father has a MD from Harvard. My father has an MBA from Tufts.
My dad was a firefighter, so working class, conservative.
He just didn't want to be a parent. So when we talk about this whole idea of like, oh, the blacks that are, not doing the thing, it's not about necessarily what class you're in. It's literally just about, we live in a nation that gives the option of, I don't want to be a parent. We live in a nation that gives the option of, I don't need to be in cooperation with our community. And as far as I'm concerned, black conservatives do not address the needs of the working class, which are fair access to resources, which are equal access to getting jobs, which are equal pay to the same access as others. And we don't.
Equal to who?
Equal to other states even. Like, there's no reality where you can say that the same amount of white people are working low wage jobs per capita as black people. A lot of the reason is because there's such a disparate incarceration of black people that it impedes their ability to get higher level education as well as higher level employment, because we know about disenfranchisement.
All right, there you go.
I'm gonna let one more play, but I have a lot of things that I want to say about this. I can't stop looking at this. This is so interesting to me because I'm concerned about us as a whole, especially looking at what's going on in DC. That brother that just got through talking, this is his second time stepping up to the podium. And I've seen his YouTube channel. I remember his face and his voice now because he talks about conservatism on his YouTube channel, and he has a good channel. But what I want to say to a few people that may not know this, when they was talking about minimum wage from state to state, and one woman was making $15 an hour, and she moved to another state and her wage decreased to the point that she was making $7 an hour. So from experience, I'm going to speak to this. I moved from one state making $25 an hour to another one making $45 an hour. And that's how I elevated my life. Because in life, you have to take those opportunities once you learn about them and try to succeed with them. I wouldn't move to Alabama from where I'm located at right now. I wouldn't move to a Mississippi because I would expect lower wages. If I move from North Carolina right now, I'm going to a New York or LA, or it's probably the only places I can go. Boston, Massachusetts, somewhere like that, to where my wages would increase. I'm not going nowhere where my wages are going to decrease. Also, I want to say that, conservatives and liberals, I hate that shit, because right when you say that I'm conservative, right when you say that I'm liberal, you are separating yourself from the whole. You are speaking as an individual that identifies with this group of people. I hate that shit, man, because we have an identity crisis in this country, and I just did a show on that last week with my guy Life that has tapped into my channel, and we have created a dope relationship, man. Salute to my dog Life, man. That identifying with stuff is just crazy, but I'm for unions. The reason I'm for unions, the first word in unions is unified. To me, a union is a unified interest. If I work for this company or I work for that company, I have an interest with these people from a unified way, that this is what we agree on that is right for us. Let this one last person talk, and I'm done, man.
Hi, Layla.
Nice to meet you.
Nice
I'm
to meet
Layla.
you.
I would actually argue that the Black working class is failing themselves. Wouldn't you agree that, in order to get a job, in order to qualify for a certain position and an education system at a job, wouldn't you argue that it should be based off of qualifications and not your race or identity?
I've never argued that. I've never argued that to not be
I
the
know
case.
that you were saying that you would argue that it should be equal, right? So you're saying that there should be Black Americans in education systems, in jobs, but wouldn't you argue that they should be qualified for those positions and not just placed there because of their skin color?
I've never disapproved that.
Okay, so
That's not what DEI is. Do you know that?
Well, I'm not talking about DEI right now. Well,
because you're suggesting that I suggested that somebody should get a job just because they're Black, and I've never asserted anything like that.
I understand that you may not say that exactly, but a lot of the claims are, they're pointing to that.
No, it's not pointing to that. And so that is that. I need to clear this up because it's a really important point.
Okay.
We live in a nation that has actively pedestaled white people. Can we all agree on that? That we
in the past,
we can't.
in the past,
in the
but
past,
not currently,
in the past.
but not currently.
So okay, fair.
Okay.
Okay, so how many Black people are a part of this administration's cabinet?
I'm not sure. Can you tell me? Can you fill me in?
Zero.
Who? So seems like there may be a couple.
That's not a cabinet.
I don't know.
Scott Turner.
Okay.
So
there are.
So we got two.
So there are.
So we got two.
Can
we got
also,
two. We got two. So back to your point, DEI is about expanding.
Oh yes. Okay.
Not lowering credibility.
Okay.
So if we have a system that has very actively said these particular people are the best people simply because of their race, DEI said, or their gender.
Okay.
Because DEI mostly leveled up white women.
Okay. So it would be incorrect if it's, if we're pointing toward this, a majority of race is qualified because of the base of their skin.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Whether they're white, Black. I mean, race is fake anyway.
Now, I do want to touch on a point that you did mention earlier, that you would argue that, Black people have less opportunities in America. I do not agree with that. I have not had,
First of all, you're a light-skinned woman.
And so are you.
Yes.
And you're doing great for yourself.
Yes, and so colorism really does serve us.
I do want to say, why do you think that is, though? Why do you think that do you think it's just based off the color of our skin, or do you think it's based off of the reputation that Black people make for themselves?
What reputation are Black people making for themselves?
What would you argue? Because when I look
who makes the reputation for Black people?
Let's look at music, for example.
We already had this conversation with somebody else.
Well, we're gonna have it again. Most of the people that
are we?
Most of the people.
I'm gonna shut it down right now and let you know that the reality is that when you come to Black music, for you to say most of the people, you've already lost the argument.
Am I right?
I'm gonna wrap up the show right here because a lot of people use music. They're using music as their argument that's what the culture insists. Music does play a part, But as I've quoted before, and I don't like repeating myself, art imitates life. So the reality of life is written down and spoken over beats that people speak about their interest over beats and their experiences over beats in their life. So art imitates life. So we're gonna cut that out, that rap is or music is the dominating factor of the behavior of black people. No, circumstances is. Circumstances is because when the slaves was freed, they wasn't given anything. They was just let go out into the wild. I ain't gonna keep repeating myself. Now, she talked about people deserve positions based upon qualifications and not race. Amanda responded with, white people have been pedestaled when they're not qualified. That's a fact. That's a fact. It's a lot of white people that's in these jobs and in these positions that's not qualified, just based upon Bob like you, Ted like you, John like you, and he put you in the position of a job. I work for a company now. All the people that's in the higher positions are crackers. Sorry to call y'all that, but at the end of the day, it's crackers who don't deserve the position. They don't even know the role of the position. They've been pedestaled and put into a higher specific place because of who they are and who they're connected to. These black folks on this show has been defending government and white people, and it's bullshit. That's all I gotta say. Thank y'all for tuning in to my show. If you like the things that I had to say in rebuttal to what they got going on, man, hit that subscribe button, man. Hit that like button, man. If you want to see me evolve this thing and create better graphics and have higher quality cameras and, be able to purchase books so I can read and get up to speed on all of these conversations, man, donate to the Cash App. Wavy Neutron down below. Thank y'all, man. Salute to Amanda also. I'm gone. Peace, love, plenty, abundance. Make sure you go get you some money. Chill.
The Trevor Jackson Podcast.